Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. How are you today? I hope all of you are doing well and healthy. And this video is made for the third semester student of English Department of UIN Saifuddin Zuhri, and it is for listening for an academic purposes. I made this video because there are certain things that I have to do. I have an important meeting for these 2 weeks. That's why I prepared the pre-recorded video for your lesson this week. Okay, so today we are going to talk about how we can identify a key idea in listening for a lecture. So in the previous meeting, we have learned about identifying the introduction to the lecture. What are some aspects that we can learn, that we can get from introduction to a lecture? And today we are already moving on to the next level, that is how can we identify the key idea for the main lecture. That's why we are going to discuss about the main lecture. We are going to practice to listening to the main lecture, and we are going to try to take note for some key ideas from lecture. Now let me share my screen. Okay, so hopefully it is visible. Yeah. So this morning we are going to learn about Unit 3. It is identifying key ideas in lectures. If you see here, the objective of this lesson is that you will practice identifying the key points a lecturer wants to make, and then distinguish key points from example, and then use your understanding for examples to deduce key points, and then develop your understanding of relationship between ideas. And last one, learn pattern of pronunciation and word stress in word families. But maybe for the last part, learn patterns of pronunciation and word stress in word families, we may not discuss them deeply. Now let's move on to the next to the first talks. It is about thinking about the key ideas. Here we need to think about to discuss some following questions. You can discuss it with your friends, or you can just think it by yourself. Like, why is it important to recognize key ideas or main point in a lecture? Why do you think it is important to recognize key ideas? Kenapa ini penting untuk mengetahui main point atau key ideas from a lecture? Why is it important? And then secondly, think about why do lectures use example? Dan kenapa seorang dosen itu menjelaskan dengan memberikan example? So these two questions will lead us to the understanding, the understanding why it is important for us to recognize key ideas from a lecture. The first, because key ideas give us understanding that, oh yeah, this topic is being discussed by the lecturer. Jadi, oh ya, ide inilah yang kemudian dibicarakan oleh that lecturer. For example, today I'm going to be talking about globalization. I'm going to cover some topic, a wide topic of the history of globalization, the definition of globalization, how it is developed, and then how it affects the people socially and emotionally, for example. Yeah. So if that lecturer talk about like that, so we may note that we are going to listen. The first point, maybe he will give an understanding about what is globalization. After that, he will talk about the history of globalization and etc. That's why it is important for us to note what are the key points in a lecture to give us more understanding about that lecture. And then usually when they give the main point or the key ideas, a lecturer usually give example to make us the listener and also to make the student easier to understand about the point that they make. So giving example here usually make us more understand as the listener. Yeah. And moving on to the task 2, identifying key points in the lecture. We are going to listen to the first part of the lecture, and the title of that lecture is about franchising. But before we listen to that audio, let's discuss about some definition about what is franchising. Do you know what is franchising? Yeah, it's related to franchise business. For example, in Indonesia, it may be dari franchise itu merujuk pada bisnis franchise. For example, contohnya Super Sambal ya, SS misalnya. Nah itu kan ada satu bisnis yang berada di Purwokerto, satu bisnis ada di Purbalingga, satu ada di Banjar, satu ada di mana dan di mana-mana. Nah, franchise itu maksudnya adalah satu merek dagang yang kemudian mereka memiliki cabang di berbagai wilayah. Itu adalah franchise. Kemudian, can you think of any business that are run as franchises? Okay, apart from Super Sambal that I mentioned before, can you mention another example? I believe there are so many franchises that we can find, especially in Purwokerto or in another areas. For example, KFC, CFC. What else? McDonald's. What else? What else? Roka Chicken, maybe, yeah. And right now there are so many cafe that you can mention. Can you mention those franchising? Yeah, you can type down in the comment after this. Yeah. Okay. What are some business that you know applies or run as franchises in Indonesia? Let's say not in Indonesia, just in your area. Mungkin hanya di area kalian, ya. Bisa jadi satu bisnis itu hanya kemudian memiliki cabang hanya di beberapa area tertentu. For example, in Banyumasan area, let's say. But here, the main point of the business franchise, it means there are so many branches. There are many branches about one brand. Jadi ada satu brand yang kemudian memiliki cabang di berbagai tempat. All right, if you see here, you also see a picture of McDonald pictures, which is also represent what is called as business franchises. Yeah. Now we are going to listen to the part 1 of the lecture, which is divided into 3 sections. Here, we need to identify the key points that is already being given to you. There will be 3 sections in this part of the lecture, and we need to identify the 3 sections from the following list and put them in the correct order. So they already provide you to the key points or the main points that have been written down here. The first one is a definition of franchising, example of successful franchises, one reason for setting up a franchises business, and then how franchising works, and then the type of business that are suitable for franchising. After this, you need to choose the 3 sections that is being discussed in the part 1 of the lecture, and then you need to put them in the correct order. Just choose 3 sections, 3 main points from this 5 points that have been written down for you. Okay, so now we are going to listen to the audio only once, because you can repeat the video that I'm going to upload here after this. Jadi nanti kalian bisa repeat audionya dengan cara going back to the previous section, karena di sini bentuknya nanti video, ya. Okay, so now please be ready to listen to the audio that I'm going to play. All right, wait a minute.
Unit 3. Identifying key ideas in lectures. Exercise 2.2. Listen to part 1 of the lecture, which is in 3 sections. Identify the 3 sections and number them in the correct order. Franchising. Part 1. Section 1.
The form of business development I'm going to look at now is franchising. The term franchising covers a wide range of business arrangements, but today I'm going to focus on business format franchising. If you own a small or medium-sized enterprise, you may reach a stage in its development at which, in order to develop further, you need large amounts of capital. Or you need to reorganize your business, or to bring into the management team new skills. Well, let's say you own 4 or 5 hairdressing salons in your city, which are very profitable. You want to expand the business, but recognize firstly that a lot more money will need to be invested. And secondly, that you will not be able to exert the same amount of personal control over the day-to-day running of the business that you've been used to. This stage in the growth of the business may present the entrepreneur with risks that he or she is unwilling to run. However, one way of minimizing such risks, while at the same time continuing to develop and profit from a successful brand, is by franchising your business.
Section 2.
So, what is franchising? Well, here is a definition from the British Franchising Association website, and it says, business format franchising is the granting of a license by one person, the franchisor, to another, the franchisee, which entitles the franchisee to trade under the trademark, trade name of the franchisor and to make use of an entire package comprising all the elements necessary to establish a previously untrained person in the business and to run it with continual assistance on a predetermined basis. This package would include things like training, consultancy arrangements, possibly supplies, marketing on a national scale, etc., etc.
Section 3.
So, for example, if you own a group of successful fast food restaurants trading under the same name, you may decide to run your business as a franchise. You would allow other business people to open their own branches of the fast food chain using your trademark. And in fact, you would probably supply a lot of the signage and materials necessary to maintain a uniform brand. In return, the franchisee pays you, the franchisor, an initial fee. That is to say, a fee paid at the beginning of the business arrangement, and also an ongoing management service fee. This management service fee is related to the volume of business the franchisee is doing. So it might be calculated as a percentage of the turnover or as a markup on supplies provided by the franchisor. So there are 2 kinds of fee. The one-off initial fee to set up the franchise and the ongoing management service fee.
Okay, so it's quite a long lecture because we know that it is main lecture. And if you listen carefully to the lecture previously, it has been divided into 3 different parts. And if we are looking for the main point, usually it is given in the beginning of the lecture. Jadi untuk mencari key points or main points of a lecture, of the main talk, kita biasanya melihatnya dari awal. Biasanya kalau orang itu membuat key point, they will state it in the beginning of their talk. So, because this lecture about franchising is divided into 3 sections, and in every section we are reminded, okay, this is first section, this is second section, and this is third section. We all know what are the main points from each section. Okay, now we can answer the question in the exercises 2.2. What are the main point of the first, the third, the second, and also the third section? What are the main points that we can find from this order? What do you think? The first point, what is the first point? Let me give you the example, but you have to answer it by yourself later on. You can write it down in a piece of paper. What is the point from the first section? The main point from the first section is that how franchising works. What is the second one? What does he talk in the second section? Yeah. It's a definition of franchising. And the last one, what is it? That is the example of successful franchising. Yeah. So if we put them in order, this is one, and this is two, and this is the third. Okay, this answer may not be true or not true, but you can confirm later on by listening to the audio one more time, by going back to the previous video. Ya, jadi nanti kalian bisa tarik kembali videonya dan kemudian play the audio one more time. Okay. All right. Let me clear the drawing first. Yeah. Okay. Now moving on to the next part. We are going to listen to the first section again, and there are some questions that you need to answer. The first question is that, why does the lecturer talk about hairdressing salons? And then B, look at the following points the lecturer makes in section 1, which is the key idea in this section. What is the relationship between the key idea and the other points? For example, you may need a large amount of money to bring in new skills to expand your business. And then as the business expands, the owner will not have the same amount of personal control over the operation of the business as he used to. As successful business develop, they often reach a stage when expansion bring risks, and then you can minimize the risks of developing your business by franchising it. All right, so now we are going to listen to the part 1 and section 1 of that lecture, and note some key points that you can listen from that section.
Exercise 2.3. Listen to Part 1, Section 1 again and answer the questions. Section 1.
The form of business development I'm going to look at now is franchising. The term franchising covers a wide range of business arrangements, but today I'm going to focus on business format franchising. If you own a small or medium-sized enterprise, you may reach a stage in its development at which, in order to develop further, you need large amounts of capital, or you need to reorganize your business, or to bring into the management team new skills. Well, let's say you own 4 or 5 hairdressing salons in your city, which are very profitable. You want to expand the business, but recognize firstly that a lot more money will need to be invested. And secondly, that you will not be able to exert the same amount of personal control over the day-to-day running of the business that you've been used to. This stage in the growth of the business may present the entrepreneur with risks that he or she is unwilling to run. However, one way of minimizing such risks, while at the same time continuing to develop and profit from a successful brand, is by franchising your business.
Okay, so we have listened again for the section 1 of the lecture. And then now we can answer the following question. Why does the lecturer talk about hairdressing salons? Yeah, you can write it down the answer in your paper. And then next one is that, which is the key idea in this section? What is the relationship between the key idea and the other points? What is the key idea of the first section? Apa sih ide utama dari section pertama tadi? Is it you may need a large amount of money or to bring in new skill to expand your business? Or as a business expands, the owner will not have the same amount of personal control over the operation of the business as he used to. Or as successful business develop, they often reach a state when expansion brings risks. Or you can minimize the risks of developing your business by franchising it. Which one is the key idea of the section 1? What do you think? The first, second, the third, or the fourth? If it is the first one as the key idea, so what is the relationship between the other ideas that have been written down for you here? Kemudian kalau sudah kalian tentukan mana ide utamanya, lalu hubungannya dengan yang lainnya, dengan poin yang pertama, kedua, ketiga, dan keempat apa? Okay, this is time for you to answer these questions. I know it is kind of difficult, but we need to analyze them one by one. Okay. Do we need to listen to the audio one more time, just to make sure that it is understandable for you and also for me? Yeah, why does the lecturer talk about hairdressing salons? I think we need to listen to it one more time so that you can get better understanding. Let me play the audio one more time.
Exercise 2.3. Listen to Part 1, Section 1 again and answer the questions. Section 1.
The form of business development I'm going to look at now is franchising. The term franchising covers a wide range of business arrangements, but today I'm going to focus on business format franchising. If you own a small or medium-sized enterprise, you may reach a stage in its development at which, in order to develop further, you need large amounts of capital, or you need to reorganize your business, or to bring into the management team new skills. Well, let's say you own 4 or 5 hairdressing salons in your city, which are very profitable. You want to expand the business, but recognize firstly that a lot more money will need to be invested. And secondly, that you will not be able to exert the same amount of personal control over the day-to-day running of the business that you've been used to. This stage in the growth of the business may present the entrepreneur with risks that he or she is unwilling to run. However, one way of minimizing such risks, while at the same time continuing to develop and profit from a successful brand, is by franchising your business.
Okay, so here actually he talked about how franchising works, how franchising develop, and what are some aspects that need to be considered before we run a business for franchising. So if we look at this, there are some key points in the number B section here. If you look at the answer here, the key points here, we can directly understand that the key points of this section is the last one actually. He wants to talk about you can minimize the risks of developing your business by franchising it. And now it is time for you to make the relationship between what is the relationship between this key point with the first one, the second one, and the third one. What is the relationship between the key points and the other points here? Why does he mention you may need a large amount of money or to bring in new skill to expand your business? Why does he mention about as a business expands, the owner will not have the same amount of personal control? As successful business develop, they often reach a stage when expansion brings risks. What is the relationship between these key points with the other points? Now please answer your questions in a piece of paper. Okay. You can answer that question in a paper after this. I'm going to moving on to the next part because we have 3 sections. We have 3 sections of the lecture. So now we are going to discuss all of to listen to all of them. Now we are going to listen to the section 2 of the lecture, and you can discuss the following terms mean in the context of the lecture. What does this terms franchisor, franchisee, trademark, trade name, package, untrained person, continual assistant means based on the context of the lecture. Jadi kita perlu melihat, mendefinisikan term-term di sini franchisor, franchisee, and etc. berdasarkan konteks dari lecture yang akan kita dengar. So now let's listen to the Section 2 of the lecture.
Exercise 2.4. Listen to Part 1, Section 2 again and answer the following questions. Section 2.
So, what is franchising? Well, here is a definition from the British Franchising Association website, and it says, business format franchising is the granting of a license by one person, the franchisor, to another, the franchisee, which entitles the franchisee to trade under the trademark, trade name of the franchisor and to make use of an entire package comprising all the elements necessary to establish a previously untrained person in the business and to run it with continual assistance on a predetermined basis. This package would include things like training, consultancy arrangements, possibly supplies, marketing on a national scale, etc., etc.
Okay, so now you can divine what are the terms mean in this box. What are the terms franchisor means? What is franchises mean? What is trademark mean? Trade name, what is trade name? What is package? What is untrained person? And what is continual assistance? Give definition of this term based on the context of the lecture that we just heard. Sorry. Okay, now let's listen to the part 3 of the section. You can answer the question after this. Okay, so we are going to listen to the part 3 of the lecture, and then we need to answer 2 questions. What does the franchisor provide to the franchisee? And what does the franchisee given in return? Yeah, there are 2 questions that we need to answer. So now I'm going to play the audio, listen carefully, and then answer the following questions.
Exercise 2.5. Listen to Part 1, Section 3 again and answer the following questions. Section 3.
So, for example, if you own a group of successful fast food restaurants trading under the same name, you may decide to run your business as a franchise. You would allow other business people to open their own branches of the fast food chain using your trademark. And in fact, you would probably supply a lot of the signage and materials necessary to maintain a uniform brand. In return, the franchisee pays you, the franchisor, an initial fee. That is to say, a fee paid at the beginning of the business arrangement, and also an ongoing management service fee. This management service fee is related to the volume of business the franchisee is doing. So it might be calculated as a percentage of the turnover or as a markup on supplies provided by the franchisor. So there are 2 kinds of fee. The one-off initial fee to set up the franchise and the ongoing management service fee.
Okay, so now please answer the question, what does the franchisor provide to the franchisee? Second, what does the franchisee give in return? I think he gave clear explanation about this. You just need to listen more carefully. Okay, so now moving on to the next part of the lecture. Here, we need to distinguish the key point from example. The lecturers begin part 2 of the lecture by saying there are a number of issues that you need to consider when deciding whether or not to franchise your business. So here he may talk about some issues that we need to consider to form a business franchise. Jadi ini dia akan mengatakan tentang beberapa isu yang perlu kita pertimbangkan ketika kita ingin membuka business franchise, ya. Now we are going to listen to the part 2 of the lecture, and here you need to make a brief note in your notebook on the 3 or 4 points made by the lecturer, maximum 15 words for each point. Jadi di sini di part 2 of the lecture there will be 3 to 4 points. Jadi ada 3 sampai 4 points yang akan dibuat oleh the lecturer, and then you need to write it down, the 3 to 4 points that he made in maximum 15 word for each point. Ya, jadi nanti kalian akan membuat poin seperti yang sudah kita buat di section pertama, seperti di sini. Contohnya seperti ini. These points, yeah, these points. You need to make 3 to 4 points like this, and it is consists of between 1 to 15 words. Jadi mulai dari 1 sampai 15 kata, ya. But here is the first part of the lecture. Meanwhile, now we are going to listen to the second part of the lecture, and you need to write it down, the key points that you heard from the lecturer, and he will say, here you need to write it down 3 to 4 points. Jadi kalian perlu menuliskan 3 sampai 4 points, dan setiap points itu maksimal terdiri dari 15 kata. Ya, maksimal. Artinya it can be less than that. Kemudian if you have make your note, but here we cannot compare your note with the partner and see whether you have identified the same point. No, I just want you to write it down, the key points, the 3 or 4 points that you listen from the audio. Now, after that, after you listen to the audio from the audio 20, here we have given the transcript for you, that you can. The transcript is actually in the page 68, and find example of language used by the lecturer to signpost key points. But let me show you. But before we look at the transcript, there are some questions that you need to answer after listening to the audio from the second section of the lecture. Here there are some questions based on the section 1, section 2, and then here actually they already give you the transcript, and then we can listen to the part 2, section 3 again, where the lecturer talks about training and support, the operating manual, and developing skills quickly. I want you to work on this. Saya ingin kalian nanti mendengarkan audio yang akan saya kirimkan, yaitu audio 20, 21, 22, and also 23 for you to answer the questions here. Jadi nanti ada pertanyaan yang perlu kalian jawab selain pertanyaan yang sudah kita bahas di atas tadi, apa saja jawaban kalian, kemudian apa saja jawaban kalian berdasarkan audio yang ini, ya. Audio 20, 21, 22, and then audio 23. Yeah. Okay. And you also need to underline the words where he repeats the idea. Kalian juga perlu mengunderline, menggarisbawahi ketika dia mengulang lagi ide yang dia bahas, gitu ya. Okay. So after this, I'm going to send you, or how many? Wait a minute. Sebentar, mohon maaf. Oh, how many minutes that we have made for this audio? Okay, maybe we need to listen to the first audio for the 20 audio about the second part of the lecture. I want you to listen and then look at the questions here. Make a brief note in your notebook on 3 or 4 points. If you look at here, actually section 1, section 2, and section 3. So there will be 3 points that you make. Kalian harus membuat 3 points yang menurut lecture part 2 di sini. Okay.
Exercise 3.2. Listen to part 2 of the lecture. Part 2, section 1.
There are a number of issues you need to consider when deciding whether or not to franchise your business. Firstly, there needs to be a relatively stable long-term market for the product or service you're franchising. This is partially because substantial investment in time and money is required to set up and develop a franchise operation. And partly because you need an established market with potential for long-term growth to attract franchisees. So, something like a chain of hairdressing salons might offer potential for a franchise because there will always be a demand for women to have their hair cut and styled. On the other hand, a franchise to promote and sell a new kind of children's toy might be less successful because toys tend to have a short market lifespan.
Section 2.
In addition, and this is fairly obvious, you will need a fairly wide margin between cost and income. Remember that the gross margin needs to provide a return on the investment to both the franchisor and the franchisee. So you will need to keep costs low and prices as high as the market will bear. One advantage of a franchise operation is that supplies can be bought in bulk across the whole franchise, which will help to keep costs down. But you can see that franchising would be unsuitable in a market where the margin between cost and income is very narrow.
Section 3.
The franchisor will need to provide support and training to the franchisee because in addition to the brand, what you are selling is a way of doing business that has proved successful. You will need to produce an operating manual that describes in detail all the different systems and procedures involved in the business and the performance and quality standards. But you will also have to provide some kind of training for the franchisees and possibly his employees, certainly in setting up the operation and possibly on a regular ongoing basis. The important point here is that for a franchise to be successful, it should be possible for the franchisee to develop the skills required to operate the business fairly quickly. So, although some initial training may be required, the franchisee should be able to operate the business efficiently and successfully within a few months of startup. In some types of franchise, the skills required may be acquired quickly. In others, the franchisee may have already developed most of the necessary skills in previous employment. So, for example, someone operating a franchise in the restaurant industry is likely to have experience either as an employee in a restaurant or in a similar field.
All right, it's quite a long talk. It's quite a long lecture. I'm going to share the audio transcript to you later on in the group so that you can look at the transcript while listening to the audio. Because I think understanding the key points from a lecture that is a very long lecture like this, we need to pay more attention to the listening section. So after we listen to the audio, here actually the second section already given a transcript that you can read while you are also listening to the audio. Meanwhile, for the third section, there is no transcript for you. And there are some questions that you need to answer here. Ada beberapa pertanyaan yang perlu dijawab based on the first section. To support his key point, the lecturer gives 2 reasons and 2 examples, and what are they? And then do they help make his point clearer? Apakah these 2 reasons and these 2 examples make the key point clearer? If so, how? Kalau iya, bagaimana? Yeah. And then section 2, what points does the lecturer make about buying supplies in bulk? How is this point related to the key point in this section? So that's why we need to consider what is the key point from section 1, section 2, and also section 3. And then you need to underline the keywords where he repeats the idea. Okay, so he repeats the idea twice. You have to underline the key word when he repeats the ideas in this part of the section. And the last one is that you listen to the last part of the section and then answer the question, how are the above 3 ideas, about these ideas, where the lecturer talk about training and support, the operating manual, and also developing skill quickly. How does these three ideas related to one another? And then second one is, what point does the lecture make about previous experience? I know this question is kind of difficult for you because here we are not only answering the questions based on the audio that we just listened, but here we are identifying the key ideas, the key points that we have to make from listening to a lecture. That's why listening for an academic purposes is kind of difficult rather than the previous listening classes that we have in the 2 previous semesters. So I want you to listen to the audio very carefully after this, after watching this video, and then please work on the exercises that I give to you, because today and also next week I am unable to assist you in the live meeting. So please, for this meeting, watch this video and also answer the question that I give to you based on this video. I'm not going to explain one more time about the which exercises that you need to do, but it's already very clear that you are going to answer some questions that is provided in Unit 3 from Task 2 and to Task 3. Meanwhile, for Task 4, we are going to do it for next week. Yeah. Okay. So now it is time for you to listen to the audio one more time by looking at the transcript that I'm going to share it to you. And then please answer the questions from Task 2 and also Task 3. There are some questions that you need to answer. You need to think, however, in identifying key ideas, because there are so many things that you have to listen at the same time. Yeah. Okay, I think that's all from me today. Thank you very much. I'm going to look forward to your answer. You can submit your answer in Google Classroom, because this video I'm going to post it in my YouTube video that you can watch it later. Don't forget to click on the to check your attendance in the class and also submit your answer in Google Classroom. Thank you so much. Good morning and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.